Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Aki number 2, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at Dexerto's interview with the full 100 Thieves roster, or at least I should say the full so far 100 Thieves roster. We still only have 3 players in 100 Thieves right now, but that would be Steel, Nitro and Hiko. We're about to take a look at the full interview. It's 40 minutes, so grab some popcorn, get a drink, all that good stuff. Let's jump straight into it.
Right into him. Oh my god!
Bit loud, I know, my bad.
Then he finds the shot and that fly. Big round from Steel. Another clutch.
One enemy.
Oh my god. He's gonna go for the fight. He goes raised up. He gets the frag. He's gonna win the round. 1 versus 3, and there it is.
Let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So this is the Curveball podcast, Dexerto's, I believe, first episode of their new Valorant podcast.
For those of you unfamiliar with these guys, we have some veterans of the Counter-Strike space with us today. Hiko, most noted potentially for his Team Liquid stint, where he found his groove with Team Liquid. We have Nitro.
Before we start, actually, obviously, link in the description to this video, so if you want to watch it without me blabbering on about my own opinion, then by all means, it's there.
Over 5 years with Liquid, and obviously some multiple big tournament wins with that banner. And then we have Steel, who has been a veteran of the Counter-Strike space from his stint with iBuyPower, Torqued, and then obviously dipping into Overwatch for a brief stint before going over to Chaos. The first thing that I'd kind of like to touch on, if possible, is your guys' transition from CSGO over to Valorant. Obviously, each one of you have come from Counter-Strike, and obviously you've left Counter-Strike at different points in your career. What I'd really like to be able to do is to sort of delve a little bit deeper into the rationale behind that.
I got alpha access when all the other big streamers kind of got access to the game, and I've been playing since then. So I've been playing since, I want to say May of this year now, maybe even April or March. Maybe it was March.
I think it was March.
I think it was like the end of March or something. But yeah, my team in Counter-Strike had just died. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I decided to give Valorant a try, and I really liked it. Just initially, I already was enjoying it from the first day I played it, and
This is early gameplay.
Kept playing
early gameplay
from March on until I made a decision that I wanted to actually be a pro player and not just a streamer. And to my time on 100 Thieves, which was a couple months ago now, so it was pretty.
This is completely off topic, and I apologize, but like I say, if you want to watch the full thing without me blabbering on, full video is in the description. I admire Hiko's green screen. The way he's lit this, it looks it's fantastic. I don't see pro players doing this very often.
The easy transition for me. Wasn't a part of an organization or anything. I just decided, because I didn't really have anything going, might as well give it another shot at being a pro in a new game.
Okay, and how about yourself, Nitro? Obviously coming over from Counter-Strike pretty recently with some great success with Liquid, some major tournament wins, obviously that coveted major, potentially not, but some big tournament wins nonetheless. And then obviously you've made that transition directly after coming from a good Counter-Strike career.
Yeah, I played the game a little bit in the beta as well with my teammates when we were just like playing for fun after practice and stuff like that. But I didn't really play like too much like I'm playing now, but I was having a lot of fun. But I feel like it was kind of affecting my CS because it's not the same game and the mechanics are a little bit different. So I wasn't playing as much as I'm playing now, but I don't know. I just enjoy the game so much now, and like it's just fun learning it, and like there's so much to learn still every time I play it, and I just keep on learning every time. So yeah, I haven't really played that much still. I feel like I'm still behind.
And you think it's more like scratching an itch there more than anything, in the sense that it's like a new game to play?
Yeah, for sure. Like I feel like CS is getting really stale, especially with like how many tournaments there are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just like you play the same teams every day and matches and in scrim. So it's really hard to like learn new things whenever you play.
And how about yourself, Steel? Coming over from Chaos, taking that team into the top 20 in the world, HLTV rankings, and then obviously as you said publicly, you know, you think that you've done a good job by them. coming across? Do you think this is the right time for yourself to come into Valorant?
I bloody hope you
Yeah, I
think so.
think the switch was inevitable. It would just be a timing matter. So
Oh, dear.
not if, but when.
Mhm.
I think that I left the team at a pretty good time.
Yeah.
They were able to get a replacement for me. They
Imagine
were
he
able
just
to-
says on interview, bro. I don't know. I'm having second thoughts after he signed the 100 Thieves contract. Oh
get a little bit
dear.
of practice before they hopped into their next events. I left them at a pretty high ranking. Like, honestly, it was probably downhill from there for even if I stayed on the team. So, you know, off right off that ship. No, I think they're in a pretty good spot, and inevitably, I was gonna have to leave the roster for, you know, the sake of everyone else on the team, just because of the limitations I had, having to skip out on a few tournaments here or there. It's obviously something that they were fine with, like the players and even the org, but I feel like there could have been like a brewing resentment as well. Maybe they felt like they were, you know, deserved more. Maybe I felt bad because they weren't able to play a certain thing. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Now it seems like a good time. Let's see what opportunities are available.
And this almost essentially fell into your lap, would you say? Or was this something that has been in the works behind the scenes for a long time?
Joining 100 Thieves, it was something that it wasn't in the works for a super long time. It was something that was like after Nitro had switched and joined 100 Thieves, it was like, you know, maybe this is a
Bear in mind, the
realistic
Nitro probably joined, I would say, about a month and a half-ish ago. Apologies if that's not exactly the right time, but roughly about that is when I remember reporting on
possibility.
joining.
So
100
after I
Thieves,
got
so-
agency representation, I had them reach out to several orgs, including 100 Thieves, and there was interest from a few different orgs, including 100 Thieves, and some decent offers and decent just projects. And I decided to go with 100 Thieves for a number of reasons.
Thing I think with 100 Thieves, right, is that it's not necessarily just about being the best at the game. It is, I mean, that's how they'll be putting it. You know, they'll be saying, you know, we're about it being the best, but what they're actually about is the content creation, the lifestyle, the attention at the end of the day. And I think any pro would benefit from joining 100 Thieves, regardless of winning every game or, you know, being the world champions or whatever. I think that 100 Thieves is great for people to grow a platform on, because 100 Thieves takes that more seriously than most orgs from my, you know, from what I see at least.
Over other orgs.
Okay, and in terms of, again, this is a question more to the floor directed here. We're seeing a lot of interest come in from a plethora of different esports. We've got players flooding in from Counter-Strike, obviously, but Overwatch, PUBG, etc. With Riot at the helm here, do we think that obviously this has the potential to be really driven into the space of a tier 1 esport?
Hell flipping yes.
I'm hoping it is. I think there's a lot of things that are
Personally.
exist in the game that make it friendly to just the general public, to a general reviewer that doesn't even necessarily have to play the game. Sponsor friendly. You know, there's no like corpses, there's no blood. It's not terrorists or counter terrorists. It's attacker and defender. It's not bomb, it's a spike. Like, obviously there's still guns and you still shoot people, but it still keeps the same simplicity that Counter-Strike does when it comes to, like, if you don't play the game, if you're not even a gamer, you can watch it and you can still have an understanding of what's going on. 5 versus 5, these guys want to plant here and these guys are defending it. Bad guys are in red, good guys are in blue. That's it. If you've watched League of Legends or Dota or something, you're like, what is happening? There's circles and explosive colors, like, what's happening?
And would you guys agree, Nitro, Hiko?
I mean, I think that one of the reasons why Valorant is as popular and probably will continue to get popular is because we're not playing a Counter-Strike. You know, it's not a game that, you know, I personally played in 2002. This is a brand new game. People from all other esports, yes, the basic mechanics and the basic fundamentals are very Counter-Strike related. And yes, I do believe that Counter-Strike players do have the upper hand. It's a new game. So a lot of players from different esports and a lot of, you know, people that might be completely new to 5v5 games in general are making the switch and like, oh, I'm starting at the same time as a lot of these other players. And I think that's why it has as much success as it does so fast. Plus with just the basic release of the timing of the game getting released, you know, releasing during a pandemic when people aren't able to leave the house anyway. It's like kind of like the stars almost aligned in a way, and it's almost
I think, sorry to interrupt Hiko, just want to say that I think he's incredibly well spoken. And not only that, I think he's quite intelligent about the scene too. I mean, he doesn't need my compliments, but I just want to put it out there. Like, I'm very impressed when he speaks, how he
almost
speaks.
no way it can't.
Wait, are you trying to say?
Okay, settle down. Okay.
I mean, you could take that as a double-edged sword, really, couldn't you? And we'll kind of delve into that a little bit later with Ignition series just finishing over in North America, etc. Anything that you'd like to add there, Nitro?
I was gonna say that's like one of the main reasons I actually switched to this game is because like all the different communities coming together for Valorant is actually really cool. Like you see like Halo, Overwatch, Apex, like game genres that aren't even part of FPS is really like Halo's an FPS, but it's a controller FPS, so it's not the same as like a Counter-Strike or like an Apex. So to me, that just like really grabbed my interest in this game, and just like all the different abilities and stuff as well, bringing in like League of Legends and like the ults and stuff like that. So there's so many different like aspects of the game that bring in different communities, and I think that's really cool.
We've had a Team Envy owner, Hastro, actually come out and say that he believes that Valorant will be the Counter-Strike killer. Do you see that happen?
And we've spoken about this both on this channel, where we've actually, I believe, reacted to the part of the interview that is related to Valorant and CSGO on this channel. And we also made a video totally about this topic with Hastro talking about it. So yeah.
Happening anytime in the future, or do you think it's too early to perhaps make that call? Because obviously the game's still in its infancy, right?
It depends on what you mean by Counter-Strike killer. Obviously, like with one sort of definition, like you could say right now we've already seen a mass exodus of all the tier 2 and tier 3 Counter-Strike scene switching over to Valorant. And now it's even affecting the tier 1 scene where, you know, in a short period of time, we're going to see a lot of changes happening within the North American region specifically. I'm not talking about the European region. And I think in that regard, there's a lot of like truth and validity to the statement that Valorant is going to be a Counter-Strike killer. But at the same time, I think that both games can coexist both as tier 1 games for their own reasons. And I think part of the reason why Valorant's going to be successful beyond the brand's friendliness is that, you know, you're probably going to be able to dip into the Asian market a little bit more as well as, you know, the North American and European markets, which Counter-Strike really hasn't done successfully. And I think that is like another facet that we need to take a look at when we're talking about all this stuff.
Anything that you'd like to add there, fellas?
I mean, do I think it's going to kill Counter-Strike completely? Absolutely not. I think Counter-Strike's been around for too long just to be just on its surface. I don't think you can kill Counter-Strike. I think the game is different enough where there's going to be two separate audiences and two separate player bases. I mean, you already see there's
and a lot of crossover too.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like elitism to the games already where, oh, I'm a Valorant player, you're a Counter-Strike noob, or oh, I only watch Counter-Strike, I'm not watching that trash, the boring game of Valorant. Like, bro,
cartoon game. You have to remember.
Yeah, it's a cartoon.
Yeah,
I don't want to play that cartoon. It's like, okay, man. But yeah, I think they'll have their own audiences, and like Josh said, it will have a lot of crossover. So I can't see Counter-Strike just kind of just fizzling out into.
I think what's going to happen is that Counter-Strike is going to have more of a difficulty adopting new players over the next. We've spoken about this on Valorant Hub already, but over the next 15 years, I think Valorant's just going to be more shiny to the younger players, which then, of course, as they get older, and who knows, maybe once they've gotten into Valorant and they've got really good at it, and then they see Counter-Strike, then that could be. It could almost be like the Minecraft to Fortnite adoption thing, where, you know, a very young gamer goes to Valorant, and then sort of their teenage to adult years, and maybe they go to CSGO. I can see that kind of thing happening too.
Non-existence. It'll always be around, and
but I think that Valorant's definitely going to keep. It's changed things. It's definitely changed things for CS
because it kind of. I feel like it's pushed Valve to improve.
Competition's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway sentiment here, really. You know, competition is most definitely good, especially in a space where, you know, you look at the esports that are out there and you have the likes of Dota, League of Legends dominating the space. And now, obviously, Valorant comes along and it almost perks Valve's ears up and keeps them on their toes, right? As we kind of mentioned a little bit before, obviously, Ignition series has come and gone. We've had global interest in Valorant. And there's no hiding that. What do you guys think it is the Valorant kind of needs moving forward? What do Riot need to do here to kind of ensure that Valorant esports continues to grow? Because obviously this next stage for a game that's in its infancy is crucial, right?
Let's just get through this ad together. Here we go.
I think what like already like what Riot is doing is really good. They're implementing themselves into like the pro scene. They were like, I think they're actually evaluating pros' opinions on the game and trying to fix like certain things. They're messing some things up, but like that's just natural. But unlike Valve, I think Valve wasn't really. It didn't feel like they were really implemented to the pro scene. They were more like catering towards casuals, more over than like the pro scene. But I think Valorant is in a really good spot right now. I do think they need to add another map or two. I think these maps are getting a little bit stale and they're not really updating them enough. So if there was one thing that I could change about it right now is like if they could add some more maps, and I think just keep updating the game and keep changing the metas is really good.
I think
That's an interesting point. I'm starting to think, and I'm going to potentially discuss this on Valorant Hub at some point in the near future. A lot of people are asking for new maps and stuff. I can understand it, and the timeline means that we're likely to see it at the end of this year / at the beginning of next year. But having a new map every like 6-ish months, I think it is, maybe. I don't know how that's going to fly. I don't know. It might fly later on, but I just don't think we have enough variety of like enough range of maps right now for there's like 4 maps or something. So
they need to add a bunch of tools, especially for like spectators, but also for just like professional players, professional teams. Right now, spectator features, the UI, everything like that is kind of not great. It's not great for hosting a tournament right now. You have tournaments being hosted, especially as you brought up the Ignition series, but it's like you have to use the in-game UI. It's a bit cluttered. There were issues with the observers not being able to use the numbers 1 through 5 and having it constant through overtime. I think they fixed that issue. So the players, when you're trying to observe, it's easier to select that. We still don't have like in-game demos so that you can review things with your teammates. You don't have like private dedicated servers. So you're kind of like, you have to spawn a Riot-based server. You have limited spectator slots. You have limited like capabilities if you want to test things. Like you don't have the same like flexibility that you have in Counter-Strike. You have a lot of like moddable features and tools that you can use. You can add like bots. You can test like this damage and that damage, and you can test these setups and strats and everything. And that kind of customization doesn't exist in the game. And I think that is like one of the biggest things that they need to do to kind of propel teams to be able to do all the creative.
I expect this will exist within the next 6 to 8 months.
New inventions and everything. Like right now, you're only going to get surface level
I
things.
expect and hope, I should
it's
say.
harder to develop and test and theory craft things. And because of that, you don't see all these creative ways to do things. And when you add those tools in that a team can go and sit and theory craft for a few hours and get a lot of work done, and then be able to bring that to a match, that's really going to be what changes the game drastically. So that needs to be added.
I think that developer support will come naturally over time, as you quite rightly said. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that, Hiko?
I see it as more of a long-term and a short-term thing. I think short-term, knowing there's going to be no tournaments, at least on LAN in the near future, and for the unknown future, I think that it is very good. Like what Nick said, I think they should add maps, and I know that they were very aggressive with their thinking and saying they're going to add like 6 agents a year or something. But I actually think that adding new agents, at least for the short term, is going to keep it fresh, and it's going to make people want to keep watching online. I think that's what Valorant right now has over a game like Counter-Strike, is that it is so fresh, and there are only 4 maps. So when we get that 5th map, all of a sudden we have this surge of people being interested in it. And again, every time they add a new agent, every time there's a new battle pass, whatever the season or whatever it's called, all these things are bringing more eyes and more attention to the game, which I think for the short term, that's going to be huge. And then in the long term, once you're able to start going to, holding LAN events and holding different things to allow players to have more
Having the lore,
visibility,
having the storyline,
allow,
having the music,
you know,
having
the
everything
spectators
around
and the
it.
fans to, you know, actually see these big stage setups, whether Riot does that themselves or keep it open. I think that is where the game needs to go towards, at least. So for the short term, we need things to keep the game fresh, and everything Nick and Josh said are definitely true that we need. But I think just at its core, at its most basic, we need just changes to the game to keep it interesting and keep it fresh until we can get to the actual LAN circuit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, just to add on to what Spencer said, I remember when we were on Liquid actually at the Cluj major, it was like the first time they added in game where you could like spectate players in game and hear the casters through the in-game mics, and that was like a really cool feature. And I think that really brought in a lot of casual players. So like, hopefully eventually if there's like a big tournament in Valorant, it'll be like implemented in the game, like click on here to watch the match or something. That would be like so crucial to like all the casual players, because they'll be like, oh, there's actually esports scene, because a lot of people don't really know about it yet, or they might not care, but like it might make them want to watch it or just check it out, and like that's another viewer to the viewer count, so that would be cool.
of course, and these are all features that can be embedded in the long term, right? You know, that in terms of the maps and such, we know that in the next episode, Riot have said that they will add new maps, 1 per episode. Obviously, in terms of the agents, we'll be getting 1 per act, which is obviously coming up in October.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I find this really interesting because what we're going to see, 3 new agents per episode and then 1 new map per episode, basically. Weird, interesting cadence. It's going to be interesting to see how Riot plays around with that, because I think one thing that I'm learning from Riot a lot is that they're very open to being very flexible about how they pace, I should say, their game. And hopefully, like I say, I think more maps is going to be less important once we have at least, say, 5-6 maps. Right now we'll have what, like 3-4, so it's really, but once we have 7 maps, there's going to be potentially less thirst for the next map, because we already have 7 maps, sort of thing.
Okay, so let's take a step back from, you know, the macro level here, and let's kind of really dive into 100 Thieves, right? You know, you, Hiko, kind of announced that you would be transitioning from Counter-Strike over to Valorant, and at the same time made the announcement that you would be representing 100 Thieves, right? How was it that opportunity came about, first of all?
Oh, okay. So you can ask how the opportunity came about, and then you put an advert there. I respect it though, Dexter. So I respect it.
Whenever I was transitioning, at first, like I said in my other interviews, I wanted to play Counter-Strike still, because I feel like I still had a lot of juice left in me, and I've been on Liquid for 5.5 years, so really just playing for the same team for 5.5 years got kind of stale. But like I wanted to keep competing in Counter-Strike, and like I don't know, I still enjoy the game, but I knew that Valorant was around the corner, and like eventually a lot of players are going to be transitioning over, because it's so similar to CS that like there's going to be a big market for it. And like I said earlier, like all the different communities coming together is really cool, and I know that really makes the future bright for it. So I was also, like Josh said, like my agency was like looking for Valorant opportunities, and then Spencer contacted me, and then we just went from there.
And it's almost like a natural formation, right? Because you guys have that partnership from Team Liquid, the days when you were playing together, obviously making it to the major grand final. Obviously, spinning that on its head, taking it over to you, Spencer. You're at the helm here, right? You know, you basically led the charge with 100 Thieves. And as I said, when you made your announcement into Valorant, you simultaneously said that you were coming over to 100 Thieves. What was it did they approach you, vice versa? Was it an agency type thing in a similar capacity to Steel and Nitro?
So initially I wasn't entirely sure. I was pretty sure I wanted to go pro, but my stream was kind of growing to the point where I was thinking in my head, do I even want to go pro? Is there even a reason?
That's interesting.
I think it's there's no hiding that being a streamer is just in general more financially stable, but also just less stressful than being a pro. So I was kind of
it depends on your stream.
Depends on the stream. Yeah, we'll talk about today.
Life.
Yeah. So I was kind of questioning myself whether I wanted to even go pro. I figured out pretty fast I did, even and try to stream as much as I could at the same time. And then it just from there went to kind of the same thing that you would expect from any kind of player in that position. I had a lot of offers. I talked to a lot of different organizations. I pretty much could have joined any organization I wanted outside of maybe a couple. But after having talked to 100 Thieves, pretty much the most, and 100 Thieves seemed like they were the most not only invested, but also just the most like interested, I guess would be the word.
It makes sense as well because 100 Thieves understands attention. This guy right here understands attention because he had to build a flipping whole platform on attention that wasn't as much as there as it is now. So the fact that they went for Hiko like that, I'm not surprised. Hiko's like what? Basically, when he streams, he's within the top 3 on Twitch. Like it's a no-brainer.
Like a no-brainer. 100 Thieves just kind of like took over the
you heard that.
Pretty much. there was definitely a little bit of question for me on where I wanted to go, but 100 Thieves just seemed like the most obvious spot just for everything. Their mentality in the game, their brand size, obviously, how many fans they like. It's just like 100 Thieves is just the complete package. I think out of all the organizations and all the esports, I'm pretty sure 100 Thieves is like the place to be.
So you say there about their mentality for the game. Is that a specific philosophy in terms of like, you know, we know that CEO Nadeshot has a very winning persona that's reflected from his Call of Duty career, his story Call of Duty career, and it's kind of reflected in the brand in terms of what he expects from his esports teams, right?
That footage makes me emotional, man. This was before all this stuff happened.
The mantra that
watching a Hex just hug the fucking Optic team, bro.
Yes, I think there's no hiding the fact that even some of the people in this call with
I grew up with that stuff, you know, so
pushing 30. We probably don't have that many more years. No, we're not an 18-year-old anymore, right? Like it's not like we have the next 8 to 10 to 12 years left competing. So I think it's super important that, especially at the time, I find an organization that wants to win and is willing to spend the money and invest in players that will win and will, you know, at least have the capability of winning. And so I think that's what really set them apart from other organizations, is that they have the money, they're willing to invest it, and they're definitely, their goal and my goal is to win. At the end of the day, like all things set aside, we want a winning team, and that's the black and white of it.
Of course. Okay, so let's touch on 100 Thieves 1.0, if we want to call it that, right? You, together with 4 PUBG players, formed the initial roster. Things look promising to start off with. And then, I mean, you could argue that PUBG isn't technically as fast-paced as the likes of Valorant, Counter-Strike, etc. It's not as high ante. So these players come across into Valorant, and you guys find that it's fair to say that you struggle against the competition for what was there. And then obviously August comes around and 4 of the 5, if you want to say starting lineup, are cold. What was initially the rationale behind picking up those 4 players? And obviously based on the, you could say, poor run of form, when did you know it was time to call it quits with Venerated and co?
I think at the time of when we were looking to, you know, basically around the time when I signed with them, 100 Thieves wanted a team to play in a lot of the tournaments that were going on. You know, they wanted to be in all the Pulse Invitationals. They wanted to be in all the early tournaments. And realistically, like, players were already signing with orgs for big buyouts, big crazy contracts, and the 4 of those guys were not signed to a team, and they had a lot of chemistry together, and they were winning, maybe not the tier 1 events, but they were winning the tier 2 events together, and they looked like they were ahead of the competition. Now, you know, whether it was me joining them and them having to cut a player of theirs and one of their coaches, or just maybe we didn't get along as I mean, we all got along personally, but it just seemed like our roles and everything weren't really working out as well as they should have. So, you know, at the time, they were probably the best that we could have gotten for, you know, without
Ignition
going through
series.
and trying to purchase some, you know, franchise players from tier 1 organizations. Like, no one's going to buy it. Some of these players you can't even buy even if you wanted to. And so I know that on my stream and on Reddit and a lot of places, they got kind of taken out of context, and people thought that like I wasn't aware that these guys were being picked up. Like, I was definitely aware of it. But it was definitely kind of a risk that 100 Thieves decided to jump on, and I don't blame them for doing it. If I was in 100 Thieves shoes, I would want a team to have it, you know, a team in these tournaments right away too. If it worked out, it would have been great. They played the game since the beta.
So to explain what Hiko's talking about, because he's sort of spoken about the aftermath and the reasons for why things happened. But so the reason why these players were even picked up in the first place, from my understanding, is that these 100 Thieves basically didn't have a Valorant team for the Ignition series. The Ignition series came about pretty flipping early within Valorant's life cycle, within like what, a month or two of its release, at like maybe a month and a half, whatever. 100 Thieves just didn't have the time to pick people up. So, like Hiko's saying, rather than trying to pick up a franchise players that were going to be very expensive, basically wanted to give something interesting or new a shot. And so they brought in the PUBG players, venerated your boy Dre, Valiate, etc. So that's why that happened. Unfortunately, then the team chemistry didn't go as planned, and therefore it seems that, you know, they dropped the majority of the roster, and now we have Hiko, Nitro, and Steel. But that's what happened, I believe, is that 100 Thieves basically had to make the decision between basically not having any esports presence in the most important esports event of Valorant at the time, or going the other way. So
everything was, you know, they looked like they were, you know, everyone was meshing well. It looked like there was chemistry, and then in reality, we tried to make it work, and things just weren't as good as anyone expected.
Could have been,
or as everyone expected. You know, they worked really hard. We all tried to practice a lot. We tried different agent lineups. We tried so many things in different tournaments, and it just didn't work out. So, you know, I have no ill will, or I have no bad blood with any of them. I like all of them personally. We all got along. There's never any fights or never any like real true arguments. It just, at the end of the day, it just didn't work out.
And was there a definitive moment during that Ignition series stint and that run of form where you thought, no, this is it, I need to reevaluate this and perhaps look at our other options? I
mean, not really. I think for, at least, especially for 100 Thieves, it was just unacceptable that we were just consistently not even able to make it out of groups at most of the events. So, again, it's unfortunate it didn't work out, but at the, you know, it just didn't work out.
Okay. So now, obviously, looking ahead, we have still yourself at the helm of the roster, and now we welcome on board Nitro and Steel, and how we're looking forward to potentially grow the 5-man roster with you guys at the core. Steel specifically, obviously, you don't just have experience in Counter-Strike, right? You had a brief stint in Overwatch. Would you consider yourself a hybrid player? Obviously, it was a very brief stint, but you have developed a layer of experience there from that game that could potentially translate across into Valorant and therefore aid your process when it comes to the scouting for players, etc.
I think this game is more Counter-Strike, 80% Counter-Strike crossover than it is Overwatch. I think some of the aspects that come from Overwatch would be how you use abilities, when to use abilities, when to rely on them. I think there's a lot of blending in from other games that aren't necessarily Overwatch. So I don't think my Overwatch experience really plays much into this. Like in Overwatch, especially the metas that I played during, you just go as a ball, as a unit, and you just go and fight together, and you just say this guy, and then you all attack the same guy together, which is more like it's a MOBA as an FPS. Valorant is an FPS, and with a lot of similarities to Counter-Strike, but it just has abilities as well, which makes it not Counter-Strike. And I think
He's
just being
right.
able to
It's
play
just
other
how he
games
said
in
it.
general. So not just Overwatch, but I played StarCraft 2. I played like on the ladder a lot. I was master's level there. I played a little bit of Rainbow Six Siege. I played a lot of PUBG, like 1,000 hours of it. I played Overwatch. I played Warcraft 3. I played different RTS games. I played Dota 2, a lot of MOBAs. So I have experience from other games that I played casually. I feel like all of those kind of contributed to how I look at Valorant, not just Overwatch.
Okay.
That's really
So,
interesting.
kind of moving away from how you guys are
having
looking to
having experience of such a breadth of different games that you can essentially learn from. I just find that fascinating.
build this
I find
roster.
that fascinating.
Obviously, you guys have got 2 spots that you're looking to fill. Is this something that you're going to, obviously, you're kind of restricted at this point in time based on the fact that we're, potentially governed by online play. So presumably you guys are going to look within the region of North America for that. Obviously, we have the age-old debate with every esport of Europe versus North America. And we see a lot of these European teams being very vocal about how they are playing, how they have a more structured approach, etc. Do you think that this holds any substance?
I mean, if you've been watching the same tournaments I have, I don't see super tactical depth from any region right now. I mean, realistically, like a lot of these teams,
How can you say that? That's toxic.
realistically, a lot of these teams have been together for months now, and it just looks like where I expected the game to strategically be, teams aren't there yet.
I know it's fine. Like, we're so early on. Like, no one has even known these maps more than 6 months. Like, of course, it's not going to be any tactical. And I'm not saying that Hiko's wrong here. I'm just
still trying to figure out
understandable.
What comps they want to run. We're seeing triple duelists. We're seeing some teams run no smokes. We're seeing teams trying to bring breachment back into their lineups. And this is, I mean, the meta keeps changing, but I still think that we haven't even scratched the surface on some of the depth and how these abilities like can chain together and how some of these executes could potentially look. So as far as from a strategic tactical level, I don't know if EU's that much further, if any, than NA. I mean, in games like this, it definitely is especially for Counter-Strike, you saw Europe dominate for the first 5 or so years in CSGO. So I know a lot of people are kind of expecting Europe to be better than NA, but at the same time, if you get a team that might have, if they're more tactically and strategically advanced than all the EU teams, then you never know. Maybe NA.
Valorant is a truly international game. I've seen this from the analytics. It's truly international. I was actually surprised at how big it is in Asia. I didn't realize how big it was. It's actually huge in Asia. It's also big in Europe. Very big in Europe. NA actually isn't as big as I thought it was. But things are very, very early. So over the next 5 years, I can see that changing. I think it could just be very popular in pretty much all regions of the world, which is going to be great for Valorant.
Could be the reigning, the supreme leaders, at least initially. But we'll have to see. I mean, who knows when the first tournament's even going to be when we see EU versus NA? It could be up to a year from now. It could be multiple years. Who knows? But until then, you can try to draw a conclusion. You can try to say, oh yeah, EU's better. Or, oh yeah, NA's better. But you just don't know. It's too hard. It's too hard and too early to say without ever having played each other.
Of course. Anything that you guys would like to weigh in on that?
All I'll say is that the players that did switch over to Valorant weren't the best in their regions at Counter-Strike. And sure, there's players from other games that were in the best in their games. But as I said before, it's 80% Counter-Strike crossover. So to kind of expect EU versus NA, those debates, or to see like the best players in the game, I think it's going to be a long time before we see that. I think it's going to be like at least 6 months to a year before we really truly see like an era type of thing, and to see how people are being creative with the game and how things are going to change. And I think for now, everyone's just bad. I'm not saying that. I always have to just clarify this. I'm not saying I'm good. I'm not saying I'm going to be good. I'm saying everyone's bad. Europe and North America, like you can kind of get in this argument, like, no, we're better. No, you're better, and it's like it's stupid. Like everyone's just equally probably bad right now until they figure out the games. Until like
I mean,
the
it's
tools are
everyone's new
implemented in
to
the
it,
game,
of
so you can
course.
actually like think and develop.
Steel's
and
not saying anything
watch
wrong
demos
here.
and practice in different types of ways.
Anything specifically that you want to add there, Nick, before we kind of look towards wrapping up here?
I'm kind of on the same page with these two. I mean, I watch all the European tournaments, and I don't really see too much tactical depth. I see a lot of like on defense, like people do a lot of bait setups using util, which I think is very smart. I think it's how the game should be played. And like on attack, I don't really see too much on attack ever. I just see a lot of people grouping up with ults, or they're like following a drone, or they're doing like a very, very basic map control, like taking hookah, and they'll just do like a very basic B execute or whatever it may be. I don't really see too much like strategic depth in terms of like taking map control, like taking elbow on bind, like having set smokes to take that, or like taking like the right side of A site on bind. Like it's just like CT in heaven, the CT elbow. It's not really like there's not too much depth to it, and which is it's not that big of a deal. But if
You gave away our entire strat book.
nah, but I don't really see too much thing. I see more innovation on defense rather than offense, but I think hopefully we could start changing some stuff.
I mean, we'll get that extra depth, as you guys have quite rightly pointed out, when we have more agents added to the roster and we have, you know, more maps to be able to choose from. And then we'll be able to see, you know, the real strategic depth, and players like yourselves, your experience will potentially shine through there, because you'll be able to utilize the tools that you have and, you know, employ those on the battlefield, right? Kind of just want to wrap up with one last thing. Looking specifically at the gameplay that we've seen thus far and the agents that have been involved. Obviously, in terms of future agents, like I said, we have an act coming up within a month. What would you like to see from that act in terms of an agent within the meta right now? Because patch 1.07 just shook up the meta with Breach and his lovely flashbangs, etc. What would you like to see right now added from Riot?
Bear in mind that this was posted 3 days ago, and I would imagine that they recorded it a couple of days before that for the editing and everything. So this, I think, was pre-patch 1.08. Not that a lot changed from 1.08, but
New maps, more maps. It's the number one thing, I think. Like agents would be nice, but maps better.
So we know that there's an agent coming in Act 3, right? If we can preemptively say that there's an agent coming, what would you like to see in terms of like that agent, that their, you know, their
support
type,
maybe,
for example, their abilities, etc.
We're going to see support agent.
I would say like, I think some kind of healer.
Okay.
Like, like an AoE heal, or just like
We got it.
in general.
We got it.
It's not just a self heal, because I think they nerfed Sage so hard that she's not even really viable in team games anymore. Like her wall, you have to kind of pre-wall places, and that kind of just like defeats the whole purpose of her wall. And yeah, I think just like,
I know I run Valorant Hub and everything, but it's always nice to have some level of confirmation of what you're thinking about when it comes to this stuff from a pro as well. It's always nice.
healer or maybe another controller.
I personally want something that either I want something that speeds up the pace of the game as opposed to slows it down. You know, if that is a support, that's fine. But I think that if it's not going to be a sentinel support kind of agent, I'd like something that punishes
Initiator.
I want something that punishes oppers. I want something that punishes the jet op, and I don't know how that could possibly be. I don't know if we can get, you know, a Moira kind of agent from like Overwatch, where they get
like an EMP that disables ADS or something.
Well, imagine a silence where Jet can't dash. Do you think oppers would take as aggressive angles as they do? Absolutely not. When it turned into like a 1v1 battle, that Jet will not be able to take that aggressive angle with the thought in the back of his mind or her mind that, oh, I can dash out if I miss the shot, or oh, if I get flashed, no problem, I just dash away. Well, you have to play a little bit more smart at least, you know. And to me, I think that that's something that's important.
I suppose we do have some level of that with Killjoy. but that's not maybe what Hiko's talking
Super
about.
meta rounds were, especially early on.
Isn't
rounds
as
were
much as
super
ult
slow.
at least.
Everyone was just trying to bait out all of Sage's utility. You know, wall. Okay, break the wall. Okay, there's a slow. Okay, wait the slow out. There's another slow. Okay, we wait the next slow out. 3 brim smokes. Okay, we'll wait all 3 brimstone smokes out. Okay, there's 15 seconds left, and we're trying to run in 15 seconds. So I personally want the game to be more fast paced as opposed to more things that slow it down. But you know, all that being said, I think that there needs to be more utility, whether it's an actual silence agent or it's just more flashes or smokes or other things, just to counter how easy it is right now and how kind of meta breaking it is to have that main op that's just jet every game and every map.
Perfect. And yourself, Steel, you were saying that you think an initiator might do the trick.
I'm torn. I don't know who the best addition would be, but you kind of have under the initiator category Breach and Sova, and that's it. Whereas Sentinels, you have a few. Controllers, you have a few, and then Duelists, you have, I think, the most. So maybe a different type of initiator. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't even know like why they're classified as initiators. To me, an initiator would be more like, I guess like in theory, like the dart is when you go in, the stun or the flash is when you go in. But I'd figure like someone like a Jet is an initiator more than the other guys, but someone that can maybe do something weird, like I said before, like some sort of EMP thing that just, and I know it doesn't make sense, but it just like removes scopes and ADS. So if a guy's ADSing with an Odin or scoped in with an op or something like that, it like either like makes it all fuzzy or just like doesn't allow you to use it for 5 seconds or something like that. Maybe something like that. I don't know. I think there's a lot of room. Like as we were talking about before, they're trying to add something like up to 6 agents per year. They're going to have to get creative, and they're going to start taking ideas from other games, including Rainbow Six Siege. And we've seen things like that in that game as well.
And hopefully a pick ban phase.
And a pick,
think
because there's going to be a lot of agents that have.
I think that they're going to. I think they from what Riot have said about adding new agents in, I think this is all a case by case basis. From my understanding, so I would imagine that they are going to slow down basically the cadence and the pace of adding new agents, maybe a year or 2 in, once we have like 12 or so agents, 12 or 24 added agents. I'm thinking about something different, but yeah, I think that they're going to do things that make sense for the game. I think the map thing, like I say, once we have 7-10 maps, it's going to be less of a rush, I think, to get new maps in. Eventually, we're going to be looking for custom maps as well, and more features like that. But anyway,
to deal with, and
they have
some are going to break the meta.
They have teased a pick ban in one of their, I believe, Reddit posts. One of the developers kind of teased that when they edge towards the higher
I made a video about
rep range of agents. You know, they're looking at 50, 60 plus agents. They have teased the potential pick ban, and that would add another strategic element to it, right? Specifically within the pro scene. Okay, fellas, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Is there anything else that we can expect from yourselves within the near future? Anything that we can look out for?
Yeah, we'll probably have a full roster soon. I think that's one thing to look out for. Okay. Timing of it, I don't know. I don't know when this show is going to air. Hopefully we can figure something out really soon, though.
And that would be the advert. This was a really good interview. I enjoyed what the pros would say in and stuff like that. And I have a lot to talk about now for Valorant Hub, because this is basically, I wanted to watch this so that we had something more to talk about for Valorant Hub today. And I also knew that if I was going to be watching this, that I should probably do what I do with this channel and react to it too, give you my thoughts, first impressions, and that's exactly what I've done here. I've tried not to talk too much over the podcast, letting these guys actually get their most valuable thoughts out, whilst also giving my own opinion on it. But yeah, we have a few things to talk about that I've mentally taken a note of whilst watching this. So if you want to be up to date with everything that's going on there, hit that subscribe button on Valorant Hub, because of course that's where I'll be posting it. But if you want to see everything that I'm looking at on this channel, of course, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, keep notifications on to be up to date with everything I'm posting on this channel. But with that being said, hopefully this was interesting to you. Let me know what your the most interesting, or what stood out to you the most etc. I have a heck of a lot to do now with the Valorant Hub channel, because as you may or may not have heard from me, I've said it about 20 times now, or maybe not 20, but maybe a few times. Currently working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes of Valorant Hub, so less time to work on the daily stuff every single day like that. But with that being said, I'm not going to waste any more time. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, a like is always very much appreciated. But with that being said, have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.
Shop